We made it, we're here. Chang and I are the first New York Times journalists to report from the Thwaites Glacier. But the Times has a long history of reporting from other parts of Antarctica. Before we set sail, I dug into the archives. The first New York Times reporter to report from Antarctica was Russell Owen, who joined a US Navy commander, Richard Byrd, for 14 months between 1928 and 1930. And the Times called him the world's first polar reporter. The Times didn't have a photographer on the Byrd expedition, but a documentary film did capture the exploration. Russell Owen was the only reporter there, so it was an exclusive, a 14-month exclusive. His dispatches are still so vivid today. Byrd mushes over the ice barrier. And this story is about Commander Byrd leaping into the water to save one of his men. There's a lot of action here. I think at the beginning of the 20th century, it was just still this remote, unknown, inhospitable, uninhabitable place. That was the story that the New York Times was reporting on back then. And then, of course, over the decades, that changed. In the 1950s and 60s, the New York Times science reporter Walter Sullivan took several trips to Antarctica, bringing back a number of his own photos from the trip as well. So this is one of Walter Sullivan's stories from 1955 from Antarctica, and we already see a lot of attention to scientists at work. They're taking cores of sediment from the sea floor. Malcolm Browne was another New York Times science reporter who made a number of trips to Antarctica in the last decades of the 20th century. The caption on this Malcolm Browne story from 1974 is, "Studies are in progress to determine whether the Antarctic ice cap is deteriorating." So that's half a century ago. This was already top of mind for scientists in Antarctica. So the first scientists to really focus specifically on Thwaites and the glaciers around it called it the potential weak underbelly of the Antarctic ice sheet. Antarctica's melting ice is already raising global sea levels. And if global warming isn't stopped, it will continue doing so for centuries to come. And yet, now we have the tools, we have the capabilities to really not just understand this threat, but maybe even get ahead of it. That's what this trip is really about. Figuring out how much humanity can still do to keep these glaciers from meeting a watery fate.